Welcome back to the Cycle Starters podcast, where we explore the journeys of those breaking ancestral patterns and starting new cycles. I'm your host, Heather Rebecca Wilson, and today I am so thrilled to welcome Drea Guinto. Drea is a movement matriarch and cultural power strategist who guides trailblazers, founders, leaders, artists, healers, and mystics to architect bodies of work that shape culture, shift systems, and leave legacy. With 18 years of experience in tech leadership, a transformative journey through cancer, and deep roots in somatics and ancestral reclamation, she brings a powerful blend of strategy, soul, and embodiment to her work. Raised in Pampanga, Philippines by a Filipino matriarch, Drea's journey has taken her through healing generational trauma around religion, colonialism, and martyrdom. Today, through her cultural house, STELLIUM, she equips women to embody their full creative power, claim cultural authority, and lead with visionary impact. As a self-described chain breaker and mother, Drea is reimagining what it means to move beyond good girl conditioning and speak truth while designing an authentic life. In today's conversation, we'll explore her ancestry, her healing journey, and the cycles she's starting in her lineages. And so before we get into our juicy conversation, I do have a favor to ask. If you are enjoying the content that we are creating here on the Cycles Starters podcast, please like, subscribe, comment, and share our channel with your networks. It really helps the algorithm get our content in front of more viewers. So thank you in advance for that. I really appreciate your support. And without further ado, let's dive into this inspiring conversation with Drea. Hi, sis.
Hello. I am so excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for saying yes to being on the show. I'm really excited to be in dialogue with you. Where are you calling in from, actually? Where are you located?
I am in Central California by way of Fresno. So right in between San Francisco and LA. So I'm right there in the valley.
Amazing. Well, so movement matriarch. I love that. I love that title. Can you tell us a little bit more about your blood ancestry?
Blood ancestry. We're going deep already. Well, I am Filipino on both sides of my parents. On the paternal side, my family is from central Philippines, so the Luzon area, Pampanga, and then I have some family in the south as well. My mom's side is interesting. I really don't know much about that side of the family. I grew up with my paternal side. My paternal grandmother raised me. So I feel like part of my journey is also learning the matriarchal side that really haven't had too much connection with. But in terms of the blood ancestry from Philippines and all the influence that came along with that. So I'm pretty sure I have some Spanish blood with some Indian blood, I would say, these Asian bloods.
Okay, awesome. Well, so when did you move to the States then?
So it's an interesting story. I formally moved here permanently when I was about 15 years old because my parents originally they were born in the States but moved to the Philippines for schooling. We kind of had, footprints in both sides. And so as a child, I would go back and forth from Philippines to the States. So in a way, I am an immigrant because I literally migrated to the States at 15, but I'm also simultaneously second gen because of my parents. It's a really interesting, I guess if you wanna call it like a hierarchy. Migrationally, I have a hand on both flavors.
That's so interesting. Okay, I didn't know that about you. Okay. Well, I am so curious. I know I mentioned some of them in the intro that I read in the beginning of our conversation, but what would you say if you had to put a fine point on it? What are the patterns that you're breaking in this lifetime?
Yeah, it's an evolving journey. The way I would say it is the true essence and meaning of matriarchal leadership. The pattern that I'm breaking, I think it's simultaneously both sides of the coin of the martyrdom, the self-sacrifice, the forced obedience that makes us a good girl and therefore a good, worthy, valuable human being. because that's all the equated characteristics of that. And also what it means to embrace ambition in a way that is not considered shameful or selfish. So it feels like I'm playing with dual energies here. Stay small, don't really like make a lot of noise, be obedient, but also like what does it mean to be someone who is inherently visionary and ambitious and wanting to go for a lot of things that traditionally was not even available to the folks in my family, the women in my family, and also like trailblazing, which could be really scary.
I love this. I feel your Capricorn rising coming through so strongly with all of this. And we're going to talk some astrology in a bit. Okay, I'm loving this. Tell me how you even got to this place doing the work that you do, because in the intro, I mentioned that you worked in tech for a
I
while. Yeah. So tell me about the journey from there to here.
Yeah, it's all related now that I think about it, but to start off, I guess, in the beginning of the timeline, I have almost 2 decades of corporate leadership in the tech world, in the pharma world. I grew up in San Francisco, so very much in that biotech pharma hub, and as a very smart, ambitious person, I looked around after college and I was like, what would be the most fiscally feasible career for me to go into? And I was like, well, duh, like biotech. And it was a smart decision. It was a smart decision because for 2 decades, like, I had a really successful career and, on paper, it looked amazing. I was traveling the world, I was managing a team, I was making 6 figures, I had a corner office with a view of the Bay Bridge. So on paper, it was all great. What was undeniable on a soul level, it was like this itch that I couldn't scratch and I couldn't even reach it. But it was this like there has to be more than this. Because if the money was supposed to make me happy, the success was supposed to make me happy, then, like, I should be, like, good to go. There was something that was just, like, it felt incomplete. And so the catalyst, the pivot point for me was in 2017, I was diagnosed with breast cancer at 33 years old with 0 family history, and a fairly healthy lifestyle. So all your indicators of an illness as serious as this, I didn't have them, which was like even harder for me to accept because it was like, well, what the fuck? Like, did I
Yeah.
do this? You know what I mean? Like, so what that experience did was like completely dissolve the foundational belief in the ego self that this is what it means to be, fill in the blank, successful, like a good person, blah, blah, blah. And it wiped away everything that I thought I knew, which was so terribly disorienting, and I mean, like, let's face it, I was, like, in deep depression at the time. I was in a hole because I was like, "What is even happening?" So, that was the catalyst to a dark night of the soul, like, a very long dark night of the soul, depression, and me not knowing, "What does this mean? What am I supposed to do now?" Going back to work after such a life-changing event, it feels trivial. Me answering emails feels trivial after this. Like, me reporting on metrics and data feels trivial after your entire life and foundation of existence gets shook to the core. And that led me to questioning deeper of, purpose of what really am I here for? If it's just to wake up and clock in and clock out, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I don't think that's it. That's not it. And I went through a healing journey, my first in really to the spiritual. I mean, I think I've as a Pisces sun, I've always had connection to spirit, but it was truly a time where I was like, I'm so open to receiving. So my first intro to this really deep healing spiritual journey was Reiki. And then from there, I got my eyes opened up to different modalities and eventually found myself doing a lot of like ancestral and shadow work. And through hypnotherapy and past life regression, I traveled back to my ancestry. And it's so interesting. One of the sessions that I had, I saw myself as a little girl in the corner of this like dark room. And I saw all the women in my lineage kind of like there. And it was this feeling of I feel alone, but I know I'm not alone. And they're there to be like, no, girl, we set you up to get you to this place. It's all good. Like we're here. And so it's this feeling of me standing on their shoulders to maybe move myself in ways that they were never able to. And that shifted my whole perspective of things because I think before that, I saw myself as not a victim, but kind of like, poor me, woe is me, why me, which are natural questions that come up when you're going through a really difficult time. But that was a different access to a different flavor of power because it wasn't money, it wasn't status, it wasn't roles, it was ancestral. It was, holy shit, okay, I am it from a long lineage of women who, in a way, sacrificed so that someone like me could be here in this time in history. So, what am I going to do with this, right? Am I going to like fall back and just kind of like give up and feel bad for myself? Or do I say, fuck it, if I only have a few years left, let's make it good. Let's really live, like not just the length of my life, because I don't know how long I'm going to live, but like the width of my life. And that became the ultimate question. Like, am I living the true width potentiality of my life? And that's when the work, the true work really started because I had that point decided this really lucrative corporate career was no longer for me, that I was going to do something so radically different at the time called coaching and work with other human beings who saw the same vision as me, which, if I look at the rest of my family, no one is even close to doing any of this. So I feel like I was also initiated into something that I never expected, but I think was in the works the entire time.
Oh my goodness. Thank you for sharing that story. And thank you also for sharing so openly and vulnerably. I can't imagine the fear you must have experienced, getting that breast cancer diagnosis, and you've recovered. You're in remission, right? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
And 8 years out, so we're still in the clear.
Amazing. Okay. I'm so happy to hear that. Oh my goodness. I mean, you said so much there. I think so many people are going to feel very seen and witnessed by you sharing your story. And I think so many people are going to feel inspired because it must have been pretty scary to leave this very lucrative, comfortable job in biotech, right? To do something that really nobody in your family had ever done. It takes a lot of courage and a lot of bravery. So, yeah, I just wanted to say that. Yeah, thank you for sharing this story. This is awesome. Oh my goodness, where do we go from here? So, would you say right now in your work, are you working mostly with other, femmes or women who are moving out of corporate? Like, if you could tell me a little bit about your ideal client, who is that person?
No, to answer your question, no. The humans that are usually drawn to me and that I am drawn into are, I want to say, industry agnostic. It's funny as someone who advises around business, I don't necessarily subscribe to the conventional notion of a niche
Mhm.
because for me it's so energetic.
Yeah.
So it's creatives, it's folks who have an artistry practice, painters and writers and musicians. They are healers, mystics, folks that have been called to really give their medicine out into the world. They're founders, yeah, sure, but not the traditional kind of girl boss stereotype. These are folks with a passion for understanding that the trajectory that we're going into, we need help. We need help. The systems that we're living in are not set up for us to thrive at all. And their ambition is being channeled into something that says, I want to do something about it. I want to use my talents and my skills and my energy to make a difference, whatever that looks like for someone. And so, yeah, I don't know if I'm answering your question, but I guess there's not a specific mold of people. I think at the end of the day, energetically, these are people who understand they have a big mission, a big vision that they want to lead, paradigm shifts and really understand that I was called for this. There's a certain level of divine appointing that has happened that like I want to do this big work in the world.
You definitely answered my question.
Okay.
Yeah, that's super clear. I mean, it sounds like your person, if they were in corporate, let's say, just for an
Yeah.
example, they've already kind of moved past that point of, questioning, do I want to do this, right? Go forward with what I feel called to do. Like they've already said yes to the calling, right? And you're helping them
Yeah,
channel.
and that's a great point because it's not I do have people who are still in their jobs, so, like, people who do work 9 to 5s or are still in the corporate world, and I think, some people in my line of work will say, "Well, you're better off leaving your corporate job," like, "Go all in." I don't necessarily subscribe to that. So much of the work that we're here to do, we have certain roles, and a lot of the work that we need to do is in the corporate rooms, in the
Yeah.
boardrooms, in these corporate spaces who have a ton of fiscal power over the economy, over legislature, over what we're doing and how we are as a society. So it's not always, quit your 9 to 5 and like do what I did. That's never going to be the same template for there is no template. So for those of the clients of mine and the people who are called to have a mission while working in that arena, stay there because we need you there. We need you there. We need your influence in those rooms. We need you to shape conversations that are happening there. My path just happened to be outside of that room per se, but it doesn't mean that your work is less weighted or noble just because you're still in that space. So I would say if I were to kind of like give a blanket label, it's matriarchal leaders. So the humans who understand the weight of their work and want to have a hand in leadership, whatever that looks like for them.
Awesome. Oh my goodness. I know that anybody who gets a chance to work with you is really going to have a profoundly transformational experience. I can just feel that talking with you right now. And also, I've heard from some of your clients and they love you. So amazing. I'm so happy that you said yes to walking this path. And I love that you had that past life regression experience where you made contact with your ancestral line on the maternal side, right? That's so powerful. And I can relate insofar as I think my level of confidence really shifted once I realized I am not alone. I have healed and whole ancestors. Not all of them are healed and whole, though. I think it's important to make the distinction. I have so many healed and whole ancestors on the other side in the unseen realms, working 24/7, even though there's no time in the unseen realms to set me up for big wins and big celebrations. And that just gave me permission to take up space and use my voice and follow my intuition, right? I am supported, I am divinely protected, and I got a whole gang of people supporting me. It makes a huge difference. I mean, it really shifted my perspective as you just shared.
You hit the nail on the head whenever I work with people who maybe are questioning the value of their right? Imposter syndrome, things like that. I literally give them a very similar spiel, which is that it's not about you, the human, the ego, me, Drea. It's not about me at all. It's about how I'm being used as a vessel for this work. And every time I say yes to the big things, my ancestors rejoice because they never had the honor, the privilege, and the pleasure to say yes before. So every time I doubt myself, I criticize myself, I close myself off, I think about that entire team, that lineage, like you're right, all the allies in the unseen world that are doing their thing, and I'm like, who am I to not do my thing? So to your point, I think that level of separation of like my human self, and also understanding my role here, it's really not about me, makes such a difference. And I even say to my clients, this is when your prayer becomes wider, because your prayer is no longer, oh, please, 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 let me sign my next client, or please, 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 let me, like go have my post go viral. Like those are so not even the prayer that I'm asking for anymore. The prayer gets to be like, give me all the money, give me all the visibility, give me all the channels, give me all the clients, not to make my ego self feel good, but because I understand if I'm the channel and if I'm the vessel, then I owe it to have the resources to do my work in a really sustainable way.
Girl, yes, preach all of this. I mean, I think another hurdle that I had to overcome, and I think really kind of all of us in this work, we have to get over, is feeling bad for charging for our services and not realizing that we need to be well resourced to do the work that we're meant to do in the world, right? And that was a whole journey for me, realizing, like, yes, I have powerful medicine. I am here to share my medicine, but I cannot do that if I am depleted. I cannot do that if I am spread too thin, if I am exhausted, if I am in the hospital with adrenal fatigue, trying to please everybody or not to offend people or, hurt other people's feelings. I'm sure you see quite a bit of that in your client work.
It's probably the biggest hurdle that I see, and I never consider it a bad thing. I always reassure my clients, it's because you're a good person that you feel
Yeah.
this way. It's because you have beautiful ethics that you are using to make decisions in your business. What I'm here to do is on a couple of different levels, because strategically, we can create a business model where it's not just what feels like siphoning from people who can't afford your work. And I think that's the first kind of line of pricing that people think of is like,
Yeah.
well, not a lot of people can afford my work, and the people that really need it can't afford it. That's a paradigm shift that I always challenge my clients, because we have no business making assumptions of anyone's financial capability. Some of the most powerful work that I've done with people are the ones who may, on the surface, didn't, to me at least, didn't feel like they had all the resources, but surprised me and themselves. And because there is so much value that they put into investing in themselves, they've gotten some of the most mind-blowing results. And this is the biggest lesson for me is I cannot make assumptions. I don't know if you watched Pretty Woman,
Yeah, of
that movie,
course.
right? So God, what's her name?
Julia Roberts.
Julia Roberts, thank you. She walks into the store, the fancy Beverly Hills store, and she's a prostitute, so she's kind of like dressed very, not a lot of clothes. And she walked in, and she's asking the store clerk about the clothes, and just by looking at her, the salesperson was like, "You can't afford anything here. We can't help you," essentially, and like turned her away. They didn't know she had wads of cash in her pocket and she needed to spend it. She needed to spend it. So it's not the perfect analogy, but I always use that example because we never know, first of all, people's financial capacity and capability. Sometimes people rise to the occasion, and that is the best medicine we can give them. So us assuming they can't, quote, afford our work is us placing a limit on their growth energetically and unconsciously. It doesn't serve them. It doesn't serve us. It doesn't serve anyone. That's the first thing. Second thing is strategically, we can build your business. It doesn't have to look like, what you see on Instagram and what people's business models look like. You can have a business where you have a diverse revenue stream so that if you want a branch of your work to be very low cost and accessible, so be it. We also need to build in a stream where we're bringing in like the big cash flow. And so I think it's giving ourselves permission to understand that abundance can come from many different channels. And that's why I love, as a Capricorn, the strategy part of it is we can be smart about our business. So we don't feel like we're being a selfish capitalist asshole charging people work they can't afford. It's saying, where can I be creative so that I'm supported and resourced, and also I'm able to give part of my work in a very accessible way?
Oh my goodness. So wise. This is an amazing conversation. You and I think, could talk for a long time about this. Thank you for sharing all of that. So many nuggets of wisdom there for all the healers and mystics and spiritual entrepreneurs out there. I know so many people can relate to this. I want to transition our conversation to some astrology now. Are you ready, sis? Okay.
So ready. Give it to me.
Okay. Good. Well, so some of you who are watching may not know that I'm an Astro Ancestral Healing Guide, and I actually have a monthly membership that is called the Cosmic Awakening Circle. It used to be the Astro Ancestral Healing Collective, but actually everything has evolved because this year I started a Quantum Soul Guidance Galactic Astrology certification. So I am all about galactic astrology. I've woven it into my Astro Ancestral Healing practice. There was something about Jupiter, our planet of good fortune and expansion and where we shine in our spiritual development. It moved into the sign of Cancer, and it moves into different signs, like maybe like every year and a half. And Cancer is the sign of the family and our mother and just nurturing and ancestry and our roots. And I really felt the cosmic pull to expand my notion of family, expand my notion of ancestors, to include our blood ancestors, which are really important, but also to include ancestors of time, ancestors of place, including star ancestors. So, not everybody is into this. That is totally fine. Most people aren't into past lives in general, let alone past lives that are off planet, but I'm really into it. And I'm so excited to give you a mini galactic reading here. So, my approach to astrology, I use tropical Western astrology, which is based on the seasons. For me, it's a tool. It's not the rule. It's a very powerful tool insofar as it gives us a language and a framework for understanding ourselves and empowering ourselves as energetic beings on an ancestral healing journey. And actually, I do recommend that people do their blood ancestry work before they dive into this because it can be a little overwhelming for folks. I'm just putting that out there. But with galactic astrology, we're looking at how your natal planets are in conversation with fixed stars, nebulas, black holes, and supercosmic points to get an even greater perspective on not only what you're doing in this life, but your highest soul mission, right? Your soul's journey across eons of time, because our souls are actually very, very ancient. So I'm so excited to share what I found looking at your chart. So I didn't do a super deep dive because that would involve me opening the soul records, but I'm going to share what really jumped out at me. I mean, first, I want to talk about your sun, moon, and rising sign because that's so interesting. So you are a Pisces sun, right? And then a Capricorn moon and Capricorn rising. And I feel so much Capricorn coming from you in this conversation, but I also feel the Pisces coming from you too. So the sun is where you shine from a 3D perspective, and it's just where the sun was the day that you were born. And Pisces is mutable water. And water represents our emotions, our feelings, and our sentiments. And when I tune into this energy of mutable water, it's like water without a container. It's water that seeps into everything it touches. And so for me, the growth journey for Pisces is in part creating a container for the water, creating a container, creating boundaries because you feel everything. All of the water signs are extremely psychic and intuitive, and I would argue that actually Pisces is the closest to the veil Pisces is the most multi-dimensional, and it's the energy of romance and artistry and spirituality. And you have this gigantic heart, so much love for all living beings. And this is where you shine. So, does this resonate for you at all?
Absolutely, absolutely. I It's a really interesting thing too that you said to have a container for it because I'm such a feeler. It's really interesting. I just recently was telling a friend and some clients that I feel sometimes a little oracular because I'll have downloads and visions of things and how they're going to transpire, not very clairvoyant, but just feelings. And I sometimes have to understand that because I think unpracticed, it looks like I wanna do something about it now. There's no containment, so I'm up there and here and down here and everywhere, and if I were to even think on a practical standpoint, even, for example, like me creating Stellium, it's a house. I literally call it a house, a headquarters, because energetically, it feels like there's walls. There's a roof, there's walls, there's rooms. So to know that energetically, I'm not seeping out necessarily, and also there's ways for people to access me, but I'm not out in the open for everyone all the time, I've learned is really important for me. So that super resonates with me. Yeah.
Okay, good. Well, so each sign is a spectrum of psycho spiritual energy with a high expression and a low expression. And so I mentioned all of the high expression things that are associated with Pisces. The low expression is victimhood,
Mhm.
right? I cannot be a leader, right? I can't do it. And then also escapism. And I think you spoke to this. So can you tell me a little bit more about your navigating the lower expressions of Pisces?
Totally. I mean, like I mentioned before, especially with a diagnosis of cancer, that's the first place I went to is like a little bit of the, well, why me? Everyone else is living their best life and I'm 33 years old. This is not fair. It's a narrative that I think it's a practice because there's some days obviously I still feel that way, but I think that was an expression that I had and it it's not a fun place to be in mentally, obviously, but I also feel it's a looping kind of energy because it's one of those things where it's like if I'm not mindful of it, I can really stay there. I can really stay there, and I pull like people with me, not intentionally. Yeah, definitely the cancer journey. That was the first place I think I went to was just the questioning of the why me. And I would see other people getting pregnant and traveling. And here I was stuck in a chemo room, losing my hair. It was this feeling of it's not fair. What even is fair when it comes to that? But that was the question, you know? And like I said, it's a very looping energy. So when I'm in that narrative, it's not fun for me and it's not fun for anyone that's around me because they could feel me just like putting out this like almost bitter energy out into the world. And so the victimhood was one thing. What was the other lower expression?
Escapism.
The way that manifests or expresses for me is this feeling of when you know you have to do something, but you don't do it. And you're just like
Procrastination.
procrastination. That's how it expresses through me. So
Gotcha.
I think it's like this feeling of if I know that that thing is going to feel either uncomfortable for me or it's going to require work that I just, whatever, for whatever reason, I don't want to do, I'm not going to do it. And so I'm just going to choose something else. I think that's like how it expresses through me.
Thank you for sharing that. Um, the Pisces placements can be really tough. I mean, they're really beautiful, right? It's so dreamy. You're so connected to other dimensions, and it can be really overwhelming. It's changeable, it's mutable water. So sometimes the waters are still and calm. Sometimes the waters are, creating giant waves, right? You're in a storm. It changes. I think this will be really valuable for somebody to listen to, somebody who has Pisces placements. So you're a double Capricorn. Capricorn moon, Capricorn rising. The moon placement speaks to your emotional inheritance. So, this is your emotional core. It's private energy. Not everybody is going to see this. It's the gifts that your ancestors have given you, but it's also your ancestral wounds. So, Capricorn's a totally different energy from Pisces. It's cardinal earth, and earth is what we use to build the structures that give us stability and security in our lives. And when an element is in a cardinal modality, it just means it's that initiating thrust of earth. So it's very, very powerful. And I would associate this spectrum of energy with the worker bee, the high achiever, somebody who has a lot of ambition, somebody who can execute tasks, complete projects like no one else's business. And also, you like to enjoy the rewards of your hard work. The low expression of Capricorn is working just for status, working just for the paycheck. It can be cold. There's a coldness and aloofness to Capricorn as well. And in terms of your emotions, Capricorn is a mountain goat that climbs the highest heights from the waist up, and it's a fish from the waist down. And so a lot of people don't realize that Capricorn is actually a feminine sign. Capricorn is emotional. Capricorn has an emotional side. And if you don't plan out vacations or days to do nothing or to connect with loved ones to tend to your emotions, you're really prone to burnout. Because your natural inclination is to work, 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 because work is emotionally fulfilling for you. Like it's very much connected to your emotions. So I want to know how you care for your emotional life, not only as a Capricorn moon, but as a Capricorn rising, because this is also the energy that people first pick up on when they meet you, right? They don't even know you, but they're getting that worker energy. And the rising sign is the vehicle for your divine mission. It's your lens that you see everything through. It's your perception of reality. So, Miss Double Capricorn, tell me, how do you care for yourself, your emotional life?
So, so good. Even like as you're speaking, I'm like, oh my God, that makes so much sense for me. But to answer your question, it's evolved. The caring for myself has evolved. I will say working in corporate, obviously to me was very much the Capricorn expression because I was definitely burnt out. I was working weekends. I would leave work at like 7, go to happy hour, go home, sleep, wake up at 6 and do it all over again. I mean, it was your classic kind of trajectory was going to be burnout. So I think having that experience is helpful because I have the lived experience of what that is and knowing that it's not sustainable for me. I don't know, it's not sustainable for anyone, but like for me specifically, it was just like not sustainable at all. So taking care of myself looks like a lot of different things. And I've tried subscribing to, I'm going to do this on this, this, and this. It doesn't work for me. So funny enough, what care looks like for me is allowing myself the flexibility. So what that could look like is I'll wake up on a Monday and I'll call my bestie and we'll gab for 2 hours. And this is me talking about anything and everything, but I love her so much. And she's the kind of friend where we could be on the phone and not say a word and we'll be okay. It's not awkward. And so we'll like laugh and talk and, just do all the things. And that to me has been a beautiful way of me honoring my desire for that flexibility. And also, I tend to call her on Mondays because that's when she's free. So it's nice and predictable in a way. I also have training with somatics. So me going through cancer, I think is very telling of my work with my physical body, with my relationship with this meat suit, with this thing that's here on earth. And knowing that taking care of this, it's not just like taking care of the spirit and the mental, but the vessel. And so I have a somatic practice and it could look like a walk for 5 minutes. It could look like I have a playlist and I'm just gonna dance. And this is not a choreographed dance. This is like if you see me looking through the window, you'd be like, she's having a panic attack or a conniption or some sort of seizure because it's ugly. It's ugly. So even giving permission to not be polished and pretty and choreographed and just wild is extreme care for the soul because there is sometimes this need to be presentable and polished and things like that as a Capricorn. What else is there? I mean, I think there is also just your basic nourishment, drinking the water, eating the food, great quality sleep. I think all of this has been just things that over time I've put into practice. But like I said, I'm not the person that's like, well, this is my morning routine and then my evening routine. I tried. It doesn't really work for me. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing all of that. So much Capricornian wisdom there. That's fantastic. All right. Well, so I want to get into some of your galactic placements now. Your chart is really amazing. I think that it tells the story of a soul who came to weave heaven through language, leadership, and the body itself. We were just talking about the body. So, your sun in Pisces is conjunct this star called Deneb Adige. I think I'm pronouncing that right. This is in the Cygnus constellation. And what that means to me is that you're a messenger of light. It represents the mystic who sings beauty back into a world that's forgotten its song. And with your sun here, your voice itself is an instrument of awakening, and you don't just speak, you transmit remembrance. And I feel that just very deeply. That's been my experience just talking to you. Your south node is not a celestial body. It's actually like the bottom of the moon. It's a point. It speaks to your past lives, gifts that you're bringing from a past life, but also like the lower expressions that you're releasing. Your south node and your Uranus, which is where you're meant to stand out. It's where nobody can tell you what to do. You're doing your own thing. Both your south node and Uranus are conjunct the great attractor in the sign of Sagittarius. And this reveals to me that you're a revolutionary soul that has worked across timelines to realign distorted systems with truth. And so the great attractor is a gravitational anomaly. It is a force that pulls entire galaxies towards it. It is so vast. It is so immense. It acts like a black hole in some ways, but in some ways it doesn't fit into that category. So that's why we call it an anomaly. You carry that same magnetic quality, that same sort of drawing power. And so people feel drawn into your orbit not because of what you say, but because of the frequency that you're holding. And so you've just been this systems shifter across lifetimes, recalibrating consciousness itself. The great attractor is just this region of gravitational attraction in intergalactic space and the central gravitational point of the Laniakea supercluster, which is where our Milky Way galaxy is. And it suggests a localized concentration of mass millions of times more massive than the entire Milky Way. So it's huge. This is huge. You can think of the Milky Way as our hometown, and then the super galactic center, which is another super cosmic point, that's like our home country. And so if we extend the metaphor, Laniakea is one of the 4 superclusters that are situated together like a continent. And then the great attractor is the concentrated gravitational point at the source of this continent. Okay, it's huge. Pluto, which is a generational planet. It's the planet of deep transformation. So it destroys things in order to be reborn. And it reveals our deepest, darkest secrets, right? It reveals what we don't want other people to know about us. Your Pluto is conjunct another gravitational anomaly that's bigger than the great attractor called the Shapley attractor. Your Pluto is in Scorpio in your 10th house of career. right? What you do in public. And so I feel like this amplifies your public mission as a truth excavator. That's what Pluto does. It excavates. And the Shapley frequency compels souls to look beneath the surface. It's about piercing illusions and bringing invisible forces to light. And you carry this uncanny power to reveal the hidden mechanics of culture, leadership, and transformation. So when you speak, this is your instrument of awakening, systems shake. And the Shapley frequency is really associated with unprecedented influence behind the scenes. It's very, very powerful. Like Hillary Clinton has a conjunction to the Shapley attractor. It's this energy of transformation and authenticity and depth that's coming through. And then your Chiron, which is an asteroid that shows our deepest wound, like our core wound, which is often ancestral, honestly, but also the gift or the gifts we have when we are able to transmute that wound. Your Chiron is in Taurus, just like me, but it's conjunct Alcyone, which is a star in the Pleiades star system. And so those codes, the Pleiadian codes, are really about heart centered leadership and this remembrance of unity consciousness. And so I'm feeling like your Chiron here is saying that you're healing the collective wound of separation. And especially that split between the sacred and the strategic, the feminine and the powerful. And you model what it means to lead with both tenderness and force. And so, just like looking at your galactic signatures, I see the cultural architect of the new earth, a woman, a movement matriarch who moves through worlds, tech and temple, structure and spirit, bridging the cosmic and the concrete. And so you're here to show that embodiment is innovation, that leadership can be luminous, and that the body itself is an oracle of evolution. So that's what I got. This is just like the things that jumped out at me. Tell me, how is this landing?
I mean, you're going to have to do some of my PR because that's amazing. Wow. Okay. Just first of all, thank you so much. What a gift for me to just, I'm not the biggest, into astrology, but just hearing this, I'm almost getting teary eyed because it's such an affirmation of, I think, a deep knowing, but didn't have words for. And I think at 41 years old, it took me 4 decades to not feel shame about those parts of me. For you to say it to me is one thing, but for me to say it about myself, it feels almost delusional. But I think to receive it with such lived experience and groundedness, I think it's just so affirming for the track that I have. And by the way, what I didn't mention earlier is when I first started my business, my brand name was Soulflow Co. It was very feminine. It was very soul, and it didn't feel complete. And so this year, I sunsetted the entire brand. This is 5 years worth of work. I sunsetted the entire brand. And in a way, I didn't start from scratch completely, but it was an honoring of my truth of who I am now, which is more force and more power, more cultural influence, and knowing it's me taking my place in that, and really like saying yes to the role, which felt really scary because it's 5 years of being known as one thing. But I think everything that you're saying is just like, wow, affirming that I made the right decision and I am on the right track. And in the days where I'm like, is this gonna work? Or am I supposed to be like, it almost I I acknowledge it, but I say it with a lot of levity because I'm like, no, of course it does. So just thank you, because me hearing this is the ultimate kind of sign, and affirmation. Yeah. Yay! Thank you.
Yeah, no, you're so welcome. It was my pleasure. And I hope that I can give you a full reading at some point, in divine timing. But yeah, it was really fun to look at your galactic placements. And it just makes so much sense, right? Knowing what you do. Yeah. So, yeah, this is my favorite thing to do. Well, Drea, what are you working on now that you're excited about that you can share with our community?
I am working on all the things. So I kind of mentioned that I am in the middle of a new, I guess you could call it a rebrand, but really it's just a truer evolution of who I am and how I see myself embodying my work, which is to be that matriarch. In terms of projects and things that I'm working on right now, under the House of Stellium are different, I guess I call them rooms, but different places for people to come and get their activation. So I have a space called the Sanctum, which is more the strategic house. It's the very Capricorn energy room of the house. And this is more business, strategy, leadership, all the yummy things, revenue, money, all those things. So whether you're a corporate leader or a founder, an entrepreneur, I have offerings for you in here. I also have the studio, which is the creative room of the house. And so this is what I like to call like the world's first somatic branding studio because it's not your traditional branding where we're going to sip a latte and pose and we're going for aesthetics. This is so much about tapping in your body's wisdom, your somatic wisdom to unearth the true vision of who you are, the essence of who you are. So the photos that will come through, I can't promise they're going to be pretty, but I do promise they're going to be true. So this is for the cultural vanguards, the trailblazers who don't want to follow a pretty template or aesthetic, but really want to mirror who and what they are inside externally. And then finally, we have the salon, and the salon is the space of in-person community and meetings. So this looks like dinners, retreats, workshops where we come together in person. So very much like the wartime salons where people would kind of come together and strategize and collaborate. So it's very much that. So our first salon is actually dropping November 8th. I don't know timing wise where that falls into the podcast, but it is coming November 8th. It is an intimate dinner in San Francisco where I'm inviting other amazing humans and matriarchs to really come together and collaborate. And this theme, I'm so excited because it's called Death of the Good Girl, which is so much of the work that I've had still continue to do, but also what my clients are doing. So those are the three happenings in my orbit right now.
Very exciting. This is awesome. All right. Well, so if someone wants to learn more about you, learn how to work with you, where should they go to find out more?
I hang out a lot on Instagram, so you can find me at stellium.hq. The website is coming out very soon. That will be www.stelliumhq.com. And you could just email me, drea@stelliumhq.com. So either way, that's how you could find me.
Okay, perfect. I will put all that information in the show notes. This has been such a wonderful conversation, a very inspiring conversation. I have one last question for you, though, and this is what I ask all of my guests. What are the new cycles that you're starting in your lineages?
The new cycles are the empowered the modern matriarch, the empowered, loving, caring, tender, and also fierce and honoring pleasure and desire and sovereignty. So that's the new cycle that I'm hoping and knowing that I'm here to perpetuate.
Beautiful. You said the magic word, pleasure. I love it.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah, no, we need it. I'm gonna have to have you back on because I think there are other conversations that we could have that I think would be just fun for other people to listen in on, and it would be fabulous. So I hope you'll come on again. And yeah, this has been great. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to share my story, but also amplify this work because it's so important that we do this work right now. So thank you.
Yeah, hell yeah, absolutely. All right, everyone. We will see you next time on the Cycle Starters podcast. Take care. Bye, everybody.